thing and then forget a million things? Yes, I did. I cannot tell you how many times I have sat down in this chair ready to record, but I wasn't really ready. So, I'm still trying to figure out this microphone thing. I had it clipped on my shirt last time, and I feel like maybe it wasn't picked up that great. So we'll see. Hopefully you can hear me. I gotta check. I'm paranoid. So you can probably see that I am kind of playing around with different locations in my house. This is actually a new chair I just got, and I'm gonna take this blanket off of here. And so I got this for my daughter's room, but she's moved out now and it's a guest room. So I'm redoing it, which I'll talk about in another video. It's a good way to kind of carry on from the new empty nest, I should say. Anyway, but I actually ordered 2 other chairs that are swivel chairs because this is my living room. We watch TV, hang out, talk, whatever. A lot goes on in here. So I used to have a sectional, and in the beginning, you could see kind of like the new sofa I got. And so I'm stepping away from the sectional, got a rug, and it's really opened the space up a lot more. And I'm waiting for the 2 swivel chairs to come in. And then I will move this in her room. This table I really love. It goes well in here. So I'm hoping it'll work with the 2 swivel chairs. If not, it will go in the guest room as well. These are my readers, so they will come on and off. I only need them to look at my notes. So I sat down without them and I had to stop and go back and get them. And if you are a glasses wearer, probably at all, no matter what your age is, especially if they're just readers, so you don't need them all the time, I'm sure you also find that you leave them in around the house. I used to actually try to keep a pair in every room, and that was just kind of crazy. And then my prescription, or it's not a prescription, but the strength I needed changed, and then I would need to like upgrade all of those pairs, and I'd rather put more money into a good pair than have 5 pairs that are poor quality. Anyway, I'm going to take a sip of tea. I'm mainly a coffee drinker, but occasionally tea. And I already had my coffee this morning, and I don't drink more than 2 cups in a day, and I like to save that afternoon cup for afternoon. Okay, so I'm trying to get a little better at this whole thing. So let's get into what today is about. I also have notes. And this time I went old school and just wrote them down because it's easier than having my laptop around or having to open my phone, which is my camera. So that's just not going to happen. Okay, so in the last video, last week, I talked about quitting teaching. And as promised, I told you I would talk about moving into my nursing career after I was a teacher. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video to find out what I plan on doing with my nursing license because yes, I still have it. After being a teacher for about 10 years, I decided to go back to school to become a nurse. Now, it wasn't at the 10-year mark. I started having that thought of becoming a nurse like maybe 8 years into teaching. And it was one of those nagging thoughts that just wouldn't go away. Okay, so first let's talk about why. Why did I become a nurse? Why did I leave the career of teaching to become a nurse? I don't think it's a secret that teachers don't make a great amount of money, especially I live in the South. It's not great across the board. So that wasn't my main motivator. I really did, like I said, I had this like nagging this nagging thought that just like would not go away. And I really wanted to become a nurse. And I don't know, I can't explain it. Sometimes people say it's a calling. If I've ever had a calling, that was it because it was truly something that called to me and wouldn't shut up. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go for it. I did this when my kids were in grammar school. Well, my youngest wasn't even in kindergarten yet. And at first I thought, well, let me wait until she gets into kindergarten. She'll be in school, full time all day, and it'll just make my life a lot easier. At the time, I was still married. And what I wound up doing was starting a little bit sooner because I had a bachelor's in education, but I needed some more science classes in order to meet the criteria to get into nursing school. So I started doing that really slowly. Let's getting into the how. Let me finish the why. So the why was really, like I said, the calling and I just felt like I was interested in the hands-on aspect of nursing, um, and being able to take care of someone in a crisis, basically. I found that I was really good at that when it happened in teaching. It wasn't to the extent that it happens in the class in nursing, but it did happen. I did have one student that I had to do the Heimlich on, and I felt very calm and confident when I did that, and she's fine. I think I mentioned that in the last video too. So that's why. That really is the why. So let's go through the how, because I think a lot of times this is what stops people from making a change. So I think even if you're not a teacher becoming a nurse, or you're not a teacher, or you're not a nurse, if you're in any career wanting to make a change, just hearing this story could help you figure out how to do it yourself in whatever way that looks like for the career that you want to leave and the career that you want to go into. And I will say, I'm kind of starting out this channel talking about my career journey, but I have no intent. This is not going to be a career focused only um, channel. I just think it's part of my story. And in order to get to know me, I feel like my story is important. And it is a lot about a lot of what I talk about, especially because I do career coaching also in the real world. So, how? I had my bachelor's in education already, and I needed to get some extra classes, science based classes, in order to meet the criteria for nursing school. So I had decided to do an associate's degree program in nursing. I was like, I already have a bachelor's degree. I want to do this as quickly as possible. I did this a little bit online, and I did it, and this was like the early days of online classes. So I was doing this probably like, I want to say 2004 is when I started the whole process of the prerequisites. And during that time where I live, Hurricane Katrina hit. So that the fact that at that point I could still do the classwork I had chosen online in the beginning was great, because you just needed the laptop, and it was still dial up at that time. So it was an effort just to even get online. You know what I mean if you remember dial up, right? Good old AOL. I did that, and then was able to get into nursing school pretty easily. It was competitive, but it was, but I got in the first time I applied. I did the program. It was a 2-year program. So I graduated in December. The summer before that, I'd started, I did like a part-time, like an internship at a local hospital for nursing students. So fast forward, I remember like, it was pretty easy to get a job. I think nursing jobs are relatively easy to get. And if you're looking to just get a hospital job working shifts, it's pretty simple, in the fact that there's usually a lot of them. At the time, they were offering really good sign up bonuses. We were really short on nurses because of Hurricane Katrina, because a lot of people had moved away. And so there's just things were just not like they normally were. So I applied to like 3 spots, got all 3 offers, and picked the one that I wanted. And then I started, and I remember like going from teaching to nursing, right? Like teaching, you have holidays off, you have summers off. My schedule was my kids' schedule basically once they started, full-time school. And I just remember like realizing, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to work the summer. I'm gonna have to work weekends. What the hell was I thinking? And like, of course, I knew that going into it, but nursing school is not reality, so to speak. And so, you're doing all your clinicals and stuff during the week. Um, Sometimes not even like the full 12-hour shift, usually not the full 12-hour shift. So at least not in the program I was in. So it was definitely an eye opener. So now let's talk a little bit about my path of in nursing. So my path was, I started in med surg, And a lot of people will tell you got to start in med surge. That's where, you get all the basics. You get your time management under control. You cannot see my cat right now, but she's playing with my toes and she will bite me. So that's kind of scary. So I started med surge. I really wanted to start in med surge. It wasn't because people said that's where I should start. I really liked the typical like population. I liked the variety of things. So I felt okay with that. Now, do I think you have to start in med surge? No. Do I think you gain a lot of valuable skills, time management? For sure. I started that position and I really grew to love it. I was, in training in the beginning, getting, being I had a preceptor, and it was very, very intense, quick learning curve. I just remember, and if you are a new nurse or you're in nursing, you probably will relate to this. Starting every shift, I didn't know, like we had a home unit, but you could be floated. So floating in nursing means you can be sent to another unit. But when I started, it was like no system to floating, and you could get floated constantly. We eventually got better at that, and they had a system. So if you got floated, you knew your turn wasn't going to be up for a while. And they did kind of a rotation. So you would walk into work not knowing where you were going to be working, what kind of patients you were going to have, because we had multiple med surg units that handled different types of patients. So I had to use the bathroom frequently, if you know what I mean, when I would arrive to work before accepting my assignment and getting report. So anyway, I don't want to take too long on this, but so I stayed in med surg for the bulk of my nursing career because I loved my team on that floor, and I became a charge nurse. Was a clinical supervisor for a little while, and then they did away with that position altogether. So it was, but even the clinical supervisor position was more like a charge nurse with extra responsibilities, administratively, basically. So you were still doing the charge nurse job, just with more work and a little bit more pay, but not a ton. So I love being charge nurse. I love training new nurses, and I just felt I was really good with time management. My skills were good. I loved the hands-on part. I loved the craziness. Maybe one day I can do nursing stories, because the stuff you see on TV really happens. They seem crazy and far-fetched. And maybe some of them are, but a lot of them come from real stories. So I could probably pick like my top 3 and maybe do that if you'd like. Leave a comment if you'd like to hear some good nursing stories that are kind of wild, but that's what made the job fun to me. That's I guess it's somewhat of an adrenaline rush in chaotic situations, and that's just what kept me going back for more. But it did get to the point where administration was really bad. There was a lot of favoritism. It was very cliquey. Not all hospitals and units are like this. You just have to find the one that works for you and that you feel good at. And it was very clear that, like, in order to move up, if I wanted to move up into management, I would need to be cliquey and kind of kiss ass. And I didn't want to do that. So I decided to look for something else. And so I think that was about maybe 8 years on one unit. And like I said, really great team. Loved it. And if any of you happen to watch this that I used to work with, I sincerely enjoyed the actual people that I worked with. So I knew I was like, I don't really want to go to ICU. There's a lot of different places within a hospital that you can transfer to. And I just really didn't want to do it. There was a cancer center attached to the hospital, and I decided to apply there. And I went into radiation nursing, and I did that for about a year and a half. Now, at the end of that time, It wasn't a terrible job, and it was Monday through Friday. So now I had my weekends and holidays off. Still had to work summers. If like maybe if you're a school nurse, you don't have to work summers, but I feel like in a lot of school systems you do. I did the radiation job, but I kept saying to people, I was like, it wasn't great socially there. And I think socially you need to like have your people at your workplace as well that you feel good with. And there were a couple of those, but not enough for me, I guess. I wound up like going to eat um, lunch instead of like in the break room. I would just go sit in my car. And that might sound depressing, but it was better for me because I could like talk to a friend or my kids, or I could just listen to a podcast. I would walk after I finished eating, I would walk the garage and just get some fresh air and movement. And so, yeah, I would tell people, okay, I know I want to move into something where I am out of a building. Like I'm not stuck to one place all day because I had now been working in this hospital basically within these walls as a nurse. You don't like get to go have lunch with a friend when you're at work. You're in the break room with your friends, maybe if you're lucky. So I I was like, I want to be in a job where I can come and go, where maybe I have an office, where maybe I drive and I meet patients that way, or I everything I described everything I wanted it to look like. And I think by doing that, when I was job searching and I found the thing that fit that description, I knew right away that that was the thing. And that was doing case management. So I wound up doing case management for about 2.5 years. And it fit all of those things, right? And it was great for a while, got me out of the hospital. I could wear normal clothes again. I didn't have to wear scrubs. And I had to do like little road trips during the day to go meet with doctors or patients in other cities in our region. And I love that because, I mean, who doesn't want to drive? I love driving. So, driving, getting paid while you're driving to get where you're going, plus get the mileage for it. I don't know. It was great. Sometimes I could work from home, but not a ton. That really fit what I needed at the time. Now, it was workers' comp case management and short-term disability stuff. Short-term disability stuff I didn't mind as much, but the workers' comp stuff just like it got old. Like it was just like same thing another day. Our system down here is very broken. It's very litigious. Like the lawyers get involved, and I just didn't. After a while, it's like I just don't feel good doing this job. It doesn't feel like it's using the best nursing skills for me. Then 2020 came around, and we all know what happened during that time. All of a sudden we were forced to work from home permanently. Well, not permanently, semi permanently, temporarily. So during that time, I learned that I really loved working from home, truly. And it opened up so much time, like in my mornings and my evenings. At the time, my kids were both in, high school, and well, one was in high school, one was in college, but she had to come home. So we spent a lot of time together. We had a ton of fun. But I learned that I really liked working from home. No more driving to work, no more driving back and forth. It was just like, was a breath of fresh air for me. That's kind of winding down the teacher to nurse story. So, what comes next is this whole 2020 pandemic situation and what changed things for me to what I do now. So I will leave you there because that's a whole nother story and I don't want to make this one too long. Now, I told you in the beginning I would tell you what I plan on doing with my nursing license. So I've kept it, even though I haven't practiced as a nurse since the end of 2020. We renew here in my state every 2 years. And if you're not actively nursing, like have a nursing job, then you just have to do a certain number. I think it's 30 hours I do every year, or every 2 years. And don't quote me. But anyway, I do it. The CEUs, continuing education units. So we do that every 2 years. And you pay your fee and you still have your nursing license. So I've chosen to keep that because I worked my butt off for that license. It was not easy. That was harder than getting my bachelor's in education, not to mention doing the state boards to get licensed. And I was like, I don't want to let that go because there's so many things you can do in nursing, and I'll talk about that more. There have been things along the way where I'm like, could I go back to that? Would I go back to that? But at this point, my license is good through, let's see, that towards the end of next year. No, not towards it. It's good through the end of 2026. So I would be renewing at the end of next year in order to keep it going. And right now, I think I'm finally ready not to renew it. I feel really good about how my life is right now, the direction it's going, and the dreams I have don't align with being a nurse. And I know that if for some reason I chose to do that again, or needed to, or wanted to, I could, there would be some extra work to do, but I could get my license reinstated. And if I really wanted to do that, then that would be fine with me. So right now, finally, after renewing it, what, twice since my last job, I haven't worked, and not having worked as a nurse, I think I'm finally ready to let it go. And I think maybe that'll feel good. I'll briefly talk to you about, I think that part of the reason I couldn't let go of my license too is it's like a huge part of my identity was being a nurse for so long, and like I said, I worked hard for that title, for that license. And so it just didn't feel right to let it go yet. Like it was still part of me. It's something that a lot of my clients go through, is this like identity crisis, identity shift when you are changing careers to something completely different. Okay, so next time I think I'll go ahead and wrap up this, like, I guess it's kind of a series of my career transitions. So next time we'll talk about, I'll bring you through the steps that I went through to go from nursing to coaching. So, all right, I will see you next time. Bye.